Thank you very much, Brother Seng Huat, Sir Doris, and Sir May for today's Sunday Pūjā chanting. Now, back with us this week, we have Brother Seng Huat to share on part 2 of Be in the Moment. Over to you, Brother Seng Huat.
Thank you, Brother Terence and the Unison Chanting Group. Let me share my screen. Once again, good morning, brothers and sisters. Before I begin my sharing, I would like to pay homage to the Buddha. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Good morning, brothers and sisters. Just before I begin my part 2, I would just like to recap because it is actually a continuation of the previous topic that I talked about, which is basically Satipatthana Sutta. So in the last session, we talked about mindfulness of the body, right? Mindfulness of the feeling, mindfulness of the chitta and the mental qualities. So let's do a quick recap of mindfulness of the body. When we talk about mindfulness of body here, the Buddha was talking about whether you are sitting, walking, standing, or lying down, one has to be mindful all the time, right? So, and very often than not, when we do our meditation session or retreat, these are generally the 4 types of postures that we practice. Generally, the common ones are the sitting, and of course, even within sitting itself, there are many postures. The what do you call it? The full lotus, the half lotus, which generally a lot of people do. Well, the full lotus are more challenging, and of course, there are people who also practice walking, standing and lying down. Except that there's a unique situation during what do you call the first council, whereby all the 499 arahants were invited for the first council 3 months after the Buddha parinibbana. However, Ananda, who was basically the PA of the Buddha, was also invited. However, he was not yet an arahant. And on the night before the council, after he was practicing very hard to be an arahant, as he was about to rest between sitting and lying down, as he was taking a position to lie down, he then became an arahant. So that is a very unique posturing that is quite unique to arahant itself, to Ananda itself. So that's basically the mindfulness of the body, whether you're sitting, walking, standing, or lying down. Next is basically the breathing in. Breathing, this is basically common meditation practice. When you talk about breathing in and breathing out, and when we talk about mindfulness, when we are doing meditations, we then have to be mindful that our breath are never the same. Sometimes we take a long breath, sometimes we take a short breath. And therefore, when we are practicing mindfulness in our meditation, anapanasati, every breath that we take, whether in or out, for one to be mindful of the breathing, one has to take note of whether the breathing is long or short, sometimes very deep or shallow. So those are the mindfulness that we practice early on. And not only the breathing in long and short, but as we breathe in, we must also be sensitive to how our body reacts. Is it hardness, softness, cold, hot? These are things that may arise. And all this sensation when we are doing the breathing, being mindful basically means to say that we must be sensitive to the sensation that we felt in the body. Now, generally, posturing and breathing in and breathing out are things that we do and practice when we are doing our full meditations. But we must also not only, we must also be mindful of our daily activities, all right? Staying focused in whatever we do. So for example, when you get up in the morning to go to the toilet, one must be mindful that when you're stepping into a wet floor, all right, that you must be careful not to slip and fall, all right? So that is also another way of practicing mindfulness in your daily activities. Similarly, if you are driving to office, one must also be mindful and be mindful of your driving, making sure that you're not too close to the traffic, to the car in front of you, and you must be mindful of the surrounding areas. Make sure that you are not either driving too fast or too slow. So these are situations that we must and we should practice. So mindfulness does not mean that we must always be in a meditation mode. It is not possible. But we should also be mindful when we are doing activities. All right. So that's basically staying focused. So when you find that when you are doing an activity, even including work, when you are able to stay focused in doing your work, you find that your work gets completed with better qualities and on time. All right. And sometimes when you're immersed in whatever you're doing, for example, even making cakes before the Chinese New Year, you find that when you put yourself so focused in doing your activities, you get a better quality cakes. All right. Now, that's basically the body part. Be mindful of the body. That's what we covered last week, last session on the 4th of February. The next one is basically the feeling. So not only should you be mindful of the body, but one should also be mindful of feeling. Here, Bhikkhu Tanisaru did mention two parts, which is flesh and non-flesh. And generally, there are three types of feeling. When we do our meditation, there are this type of feeling: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feeling. I mean, whether you are meditating or not, these are the three common feelings we have. Some days we feel pleasant, some days we don't feel pleasant, and some days we're just neutral. All right. So, for example, during this what do you call hot spell, when you are out in the open, you definitely cannot be feeling pleasant, because weather there is so hot and it literally burns your skin. So then you have an unpleasant feeling. And of course, when you come into the house or in an office or in a space where it's cooling, then you find that suddenly you had a pleasant feeling. But then what is the flesh and non-flesh? So here basically means to say that when you are out in the hot sun, you definitely feel unpleasant feeling to the flesh because the sun is burning your skins. All right. But when you talk about non-flesh, basically means to say your mind and your thought itself. When you come in from a hot sun into the aircon room or into a mall or into a place which is not hot, you find that not only will your flesh be feeling pleasant because you get cool air, but mentally, right, you will also feel pleasant. All right, you are not so stressed because of the heat that is burning your skin. So that's basically what it meant by feeling pleasant. Similarly, when you are doing meditation, when you're doing mindfulness meditation, you will have all these feelings. All right. You can't prevent all these feelings. So the only thing here is when you talk about mindfulness, you're talking about being present in a moment. All right. Being present in the moment. You do not try to avoid it because this is part of nature. What is important here is to be mindful of what you're feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, and do not pass any judgment. Because once you pass judgment, basically means you're putting in some what do you call it? Some defilements into your feeling, and when that get onto it, you find that you get agitated, you get angry, you get frustrated, and things like that. All right. So that is basically what was taught in the previous session. And not only that, I also share with you on the body component element. In this particular sutta, Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha actually, share with us that not only do we be mindful of the body, but the component part of the body. We have got 32 body parts. And that, in meditations, in some meditations, we are also taught to contemplate on 32 body parts. All right. And and as a human body, we are made up of four types of elements: solid, liquid, heat, and winds. Why is this element very important? It is important because we need to know that when we are meditating, uh, many things can happen in our body. For example, we feel bloated, or we feel hard, or we feel soft, or sometimes we feel cold, and sometimes we feel hot. And of course, sometimes there are winds. I mean, you say that when When, for example, one of them is when we burp or when we fart. Those are wind that is coming up from the body. So to be able to understand these four elements is very important so that we are able to sort of balance it up. All right. So, for example, when a body is, what do you call it, is hard, we know that it is because of the solid element. It could also be due to a wind element. For example, when you got wind in your stomach, definitely your stomach feel bloated and hard. And it is because there are a lot of wind in your stomach. All right. And when you have fever, it is because the heat is within your body is what do you call it? It's been generated higher than normal. Then when those things happen, you know what to do. And in this particular sutta, the Buddha also emphasized on the decaying process. In fact, in some meditation, they talk about the Asubha meditation, basically to contemplate on the decaying process. It may sound gross, but basically all of us upon our death will go through this 9-step process of the decaying. And I shall not go into the detail. This is just a recap. All right. So this is basically the mindfulness of the body, feelings, body component, and decaying process. This is what we went through last sessions. Okay, and of course, the most common characteristic of all this is basically the arising and passing away. Basically mean to say that whatever that happens in the body is never permanent. There's always a change in our body, right? Now, next one here is be in the moment, what it means. Awareness of thoughts, action, feeling in the present moment. Now, we can't help it. Sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we feel sad, sometimes we feel angry, and sometimes we feel agitated, things like that. All right. That is what do you call that? That is a natural thing that happens in our body, in our thoughts, in our actions, and we cannot prevent it. But what is important here is we must be aware, especially on the thoughts. Of course, action you can still control, but thoughts is something that arise sometimes when you are doing some thinking or when you're doing some actions, thought just arise. All right. What is important here? You can't prevent it, but you must be aware. Similarly, feeling when you are say sometime when you are doing your what do you call it? Your daily activities. Somehow or other you feel happy. Why? Because that same activity that you do may reflect a past situation in which the same action that you do brings you happiness, or vice versa, where the action that you're doing you recall of an event that is not so pleasant, and therefore you don't feel pleasant. All right. So, but however, what it means here is that whatever feeling, thought, and actions that you have in the moment, you must just be aware. That's basically be what it means by to be in the moment. And of course, be fully present in the moment. This is very interesting. Just share with you my little experience recently. I was helping my sister-in-law to make pineapple tarts. I think we all know that as Baba Nyonya, and also a lot of people before New Year, they all like to make pineapple tarts. So I was helping her, and she was asking me to to fill up the pastry with this pineapple jam. Now, as I was doing it, is very she's very fussy and very meticulous, and the pineapple tarts are not the big one, but the small one. So you really have to make sure that you put your mind and attention to making sure that the jams does not spill all over the place on the pastry, and you got to really put your mind and soul into making it. So when I was doing it, I find that I was so fully immersed that as if I'm part of the whole process. So you find that when you are so focused into doing what you're doing, you actually forgot what's happening around you. All right, you feel as if you are part of the whole thing, and there's no difference between the pineapple tarts and yourself. You are fully immersed. So to me, that's what I mean by being fully present in the moment. You are fully present in the moment because of your focus and your attention. So similarly, in the meditation process, we also taught that when you are practicing meditation, when you are breathing in, breathing out, you have to follow through the breathing process. That's why the Buddha taught us that when we breathe in, we must be mindful from the first moment when we take our breath in, we have to follow through until the end of the breathing in. And then when you breathe out, you got to start from where you breathe out until the end of breathing out. That's basically to be fully present in the moment. It's not easy, but one have to try, right? And of course, Without judgment and distraction, that is basically to be able to see things as they are. This is another good example whereby we talk about when feeling and thoughts arise, we should not get ourselves, involved into making any judgment. So, for example, when we are angry, or frustrated because of traffic jam. All right. Now, if you were to start making judgment to say, where are the policemen? Why is their car not moving very fast? Why is their car slowing down? Things like that. That is basically putting judgment. And that to me is a distraction. You know, to not judge basically means to say that it's just traffic jam. Okay, the car is not moving. That's it. All right. So, it's not easy. It's not easy to pass judgment because quite common for people to be judgment. But when you want to be in the moment, you don't want to allow your mind to be distracted with all the other possibilities. And I call this defilement and distractions. When you start making comments about people, when you start making comments about, it could be the law, it could be the things that happens around you, all right? So that is basically what you mean by when you want to be in the moment, you do it without judgment or distractions, all right? Now, we are not enlightened. It's not easy for us to still our mind, so to speak. Still basically means to remain, what do you call, calm and peace all the time, right? Our mind wanders all over the place all the time. Our mind is like monkey. That's why we call it monkey mind. But when we are practicing mindfulness, be in the moment, when our mind are, what do you call it, wandering around, I think self-compassion is very important. To me, this is a simile of, catching a fish. All right. When a fish, when you are doing a fishing and the fish caught your so-called line, the fish will be running all over the place trying to escape from it. All right. So instead of being aggressive, you let the fish go in, go out, and then you slowly pull it back. You let the fish go here, you let the line off a little bit and pull it back. So similarly with meditation and mindfulness, when the mind wanders, don't force it, don't show anger, show compassion. Take your time, let it be mindful, let it go, and then slowly come back. And mind is such that, if you force it, you find it's more difficult for you to be able to bring it back to focus. All right. But when you are mindful, you find that it's easier to bring forth the minds. Right? Our mind is like I call it vandalizer. Just imagine if we are not mindful, okay, when you're not mindful, our mind will wander all over the place. It's just like if we are not mindful and be aware of so-called vandalizers that is that's existing around us, the moment we take our eye off the vandalizer, he will come and paint onto our wall, for example. But the moment you're mindful of the vandalizer, he won't come to you because he knows that you're watching. So the mind is like that, all right? The mind is like that. And when you watch it, it will not go away, but the moment you don't watch it, it will go away, all right? That's basically the behavior of the mind. Now, when such thing happen, I think instead of trying to fight it, just acknowledge it. Acknowledge that the thought arises. It could be good thought, it could be bad thoughts. All right. Whole idea of being in a moment does not mean that you must always be in a pleasant moment. It does not necessarily always be a pleasant moment. It could also be an unpleasant moment. What is important here is whether pleasant moment or unpleasant moment or good thought, bad thoughts. What is important here is to acknowledge and note it. All right. And if you are doing any meditation at that point of time, if that thought is not related to your meditation, then I think you should quickly let it go, and then you can bring back your object of focus. All right, that's basically what it means to be in the moment. Right. Now, mindfulness is important in Buddha's teaching. I think again here I want to recap that in the 7 factors of enlightenment of Bhujanga, all right, mindfulness is already placed as number 1. Now, you'll notice that there is a difference between number 1 and number 7, which is concentration. Mindfulness is more, we call it wide-ranging. It's more inclusive. It covers all type of activity, thoughts, speech that is prevailing in you as a person. All right, that's basically mindfulness. whatever you do, whatever you think, whatever you say, all right, you must be mindful all the time. That's why the mindfulness is put as number one. Whereas concentration samadhi is basically different. It is more exclusive and what do you call it? It's not. It's more inclusive. It is concentration is more inward looking. It is not wide. It's not broad based. All right. It's very narrow based, and it is only inclusive. So you stay focused in one particular point of that particular point of attention, the one that you want to do. So in the case, in the case of mindfulness, you are mindful of all the activities around you. In the case of samadhi, you are actually paying attention to one particular point, which is basically could be your breathing in, to be rising and falling of your endowment. So mindfulness is number one. And of course, mindfulness is also mentioned in the Eight Noble Path taught by the Buddha. Here, I wanted to mention about three areas here: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentrations. Here, if you look at the Buddha's grouping of the Eight Noble Path, right effort, mindfulness, concentration fall under samadhi. All right, fall under samadhi. And what samadhi basically means to say here is to gather the minds in a direction and put it together. All right. So to summarize it, it is bringing a unified mind to a place object of focus. So it is very important for us to be able to bring a unified mind so that we can actually put in a particular object of focus. We need effort. We need effort, right effort, right? So that if their mind will start wander, we slowly bring it back to a point of focus. And we need mindfulness so that we are able to follow, all right, to recollect, to follow wherever the mind is going. And with right concentration, it will lead us to samadhi, right? So this is basically why mindfulness is important in Buddha's teaching. And of course, the other suttas where the Buddha taught about mindfulness here is Maha Satipatthana Sutta, Dika Nikaya 22, which is actually an elaboration of Satipatthana Sutta, and also Anapanasati Sutta, as well as Kaya Gata Sati Sutta, which is talking about the mindfulness of the body, right? Whereas Anapanasati talks about mindfulness of the breathing. Okay. Now here we talk about, again here, right mindfulness, why it's important, because with right mindfulness, we're able to control in the sense that control your thoughts of both wholesome and unwholesome state of mind. And when you're able to control, what do you call it, your thoughts, and it will then lead you to be able to control your speech and your other mental activity, because mind is very, very powerful. So if we are not mindful, then it's not possible for us to practice the other seven noble paths. So right mindfulness is very important. Okay, let's come back to the third part of Satipatthana Sutta, which is basically the mind. Here, the Buddha elaborated on the characteristic of the mind, where he says that the mind may have greed, may have hatred, may have delusions, and the mind could be constricted, very narrow or enlarged. And the minds could be supreme, which is surpassed, unsupreme, or the mind could be concentrated and the mind is not concentrated. And the mind is released and the mind not released. These are the example, these are the point where the Buddha mentioned that whichever characteristic the mind is in now, one must be able to know. One must be able to be aware of the condition of the mind. Okay. Now here he further mentioned that in this way, he remained focused internally on the mind in and of itself, or externally on the mind in and of itself, or both internally or externally on the mind in and of itself. Or he remains focused on the phenomena of origination with regards to the mind, on the phenomena of passing away with regards to the mind, or on the phenomena of origination and passing away with the mind. All right. So let me then also he says that on his mindfulness, there is a mind. It's maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance. Okay. Let me explain to you what it means. Internally on the mind in on itself. So basically it means that mindful of your own mind and thought process, emotion, and feeling. It basically means to say that you must be mindful of your own mind and the thought process, emotion, feeling. All right. And externally on the mind in of itself, mindful of the minds of others around you. Now, question is, how do you know? How do you know the mind of others around you? Well, generally, you can do that by observation. And when you interact, when you're mindful of how the person is thinking, by the way he act, by the way he talk, right, and by the way he thinks. So that's basically to be able to be mindful of minds of other people, all right? And then internally and externally on the mind in on itself. So mindful of your mind and others, especially during interaction. So you find that this is very effective and very useful and very, very important, because when you are able to be mindful of your own mind as well as the mind of others, and when you engage yourself in the conversation with another person, you are also mindful of your mind to say that, no, when this person is trying to agitate me, I must be aware that anger is arising in my mind. I must cool down and cool down and cool down. So if you're aware and you're able to control your mind, then you find that you become more patient. Huh? Similarly, if you were to interact with another person and he starts saying something that is very positive, negative, it stirs up your emotion, and you are able to then evaluate yourself. At the same time, you also evaluate the type of personality the other person have. So this is basically what it means by being mindful of your own mind as well as the mind of others. All right. So when the Buddha mentioned about internally and externally on the mind in and of itself, it basically means to say that you are mindful of your minds and others, especially during interactions. All right. Now, in the same manner, he talks of phenomena of origination with regards to the mind. Here, when the mind start thinking, or when the mind start developing emotions, perception, mental states, so as we all know that when you talk about the origination, there's always cause and effect. Nothing happens without any reasons. All right. Under the dependent origination, everything arises because of a cause, because a condition is present to be present. So it could be due to your present, your past experience, or just merely habits. All right. So when it talks about phenomena of origination with regards to the mind, it basically talks about knowing the cause and condition, all right, of your mind. So I'll give you an example here. When you are doing, for example, in my own personal experience when I was doing meditation, right? As I was doing meditation, there are certain what do you call it? Certain sounds that I hear. When that sounds, especially the sounds of the bird, when the sounds of the bird appear, straight away, somehow or other, it occurs to me that a reflection of the past experience. When I was younger, young boy, I used to go into the jungle, and there are a lot of these birds that that flies around. All right, and I was young boy, ignorant. Then I was using catapult, trying to hit the bird with a stone. So automatically it reminds me of an experience we experienced in the past. All right. So when when a thought, an emotion, or what do you call it, perception arise, there's always a reason to it. So being mindful of the cause and condition is what do you call it, is important. All right. So by doing so, we then be able to know that anything that happened through our emotion and thoughts and perception, there is a reason. There is a reason to it. So here, when you talk about mindful of origination, mean to say mindful of dependent origination, that things happen with the reasons. All right. And then we talk about mindful of passing away, cessation of thought, emotion, and perceptions. Here, it gives us an understanding, and a lesson that we can learn here is that all things are not permanent. In fact, all conditioned things are not permanent. All right. Thoughts that arise will actually fade away. All right. Thoughts that arise will always fade away. So this is basically a mind of passing away. And then mindfulness of origination and passing away. Here, through this statement that was mentioned by the Buddha, we can say that we can gain insight from the three characteristics of life. So when you are mindful of the originations and passing away, you then also understand that nothing is permanent. Okay, when nothing is permanent, it causes suffering. All right, especially when you are experiencing pleasant things in life, whether through material wealth or even mental happiness. you know that it will not last. And the day when, the good things are over, then you begin to suffer. All right. And of course, the third one here is non-self. All right. Whatever that happens in us, there's no I. It's difficult to differentiate between the eyes. Just now we mentioned, we have got 32 parts in the body. We are made up of 4 different elements. The mind is thinking and the body is doing. So question here is, where's the I? All right. So mindfulness of the origination and passing away. Through this, we are able to gain insights of the 3 characteristics of life. So this is what it means by the mind. Be mindful of the mind. Okay. Now, then he also mentioned, or he's mindful that there is a mind, is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance. All right. He remains independent, unsustained by not clinging anything in the world. So mindfulness of the existence of the mind. Okay. You know and you remember that there's a mind and not to cling to our thoughts and motion. So basically, again here, in this particular sutta, it is important for us to know that the more you cling, the more you suffer. All right. Now, I want to also share a little bit about the nature of the mind. This one is basically through, my experience when I attended the Pleiadians retreat last year. In this particular sutta, the mind, we were taught that the mind is king. Okay. In this particular sutta called the Suddha Sutta, the Buddha likes to use similes. So in this particular sutta, the Buddha was talking about 2 types of cooks. Cooks. The Buddha was saying that, there are 2 types of cook. One cook is one who actually are able to prepare different type of curry. All right. And this first cook, he can prepare bitter curry, sweet curry, spicy curry, flavorful curry, plain curry, different type of curry. Right. And he knows that the king tastes are not the same every day or every time. All right. But this cook does not ask the king. He just prepare the curry as he likes for the day. Unfortunately, the king may not like it. All right. So when the king may not like what the cook has cooked, all right, because the cook is foolish, not experienced, he never asks the king what he wants. He is therefore not rewarded. Okay. In fact, he will be reprimanded by the king to say that, why do you cook bitter curry today when I would like to have a sweet curry? Right? That is the first, story. The second story here is about this cook. He's wise, experienced, knowledgeable, and he also can cook different type curry. But every day he asks the king, what would you like? All right? He knows what the king's like. So if the king likes a bitter curry today, he will cook the bitter curry and serve it to the king. And the king will be very, very pleased. And because the king is very, very pleased, the king will then reward the cook with all kinds of bonuses, material wealth, and things like that. All right. So in the meditation retreat that I attended, we've been taught by Verma Arya Dhammika to say that when you are able to serve what the mind wants, you'll be rewarded. So in the context of meditation, what it says here is this. There are many meditation techniques. In fact, we were taught about 10 different techniques. But, when we went through meditation retreat, while sitting meditation is one of the most common one besides standing, besides walking, but we must treat the mind like a king. We must ask, what is the king thinking today? So I'll give you an example. When you are feeling very, very tired, all right? When you're feeling very, very tired and you find that sitting will make you fall asleep, what must you do? You must then actually change your meditating technique from sitting to walking. So when you change your techniques from sitting to walking, then you find that you may be rewarded in the sense that you are able to concentrate better. Or you may want to choose an open mindfulness where it requires you to stand, open up your eyes, open up all the 5 sense door, and continue to practice open mindfulness. That way, you find that you will help you to stir, your mind better rather than just sitting down. Sitting down may result in you feeling lethargic and falling asleep. So when you are able to take care of the mind or treat the mind like a king, then you find that you will be rewarded. In a sense, in this particular matter, you are rewarded uh, by positive result of your meditation output. All right. So that's basically the nature of the king, nature of the mind, which is the mind is king. And we all know that the Buddha also taught us in Dhammapada 1 and 2 that the mind is forerunner of all good and bad things. All right. So everything else that happens starts with the mind. If the mind think of good things, then good thing will follow. If the mind thinks of bad thing, then the bad thing will follow. All right. The other thing that we must take note here is that the mind can only process one thing at a time. This is very important because in relation to mindfulness, if you are mindful of one particular activity, for example, in this case, you're mindful of breathing in, breathing out, you're able to follow it closely, be in the present moment, all right? There is no other thoughts, whether good or bad, they will come in. Okay, there will no other thoughts because the mind can only take one thing at a time. Though we always say that, oh, no, we can actually do multitasking. We can think many things at one time. But in reality, the mind can only process one thing at a time. So this is something we must know. Because the mind works so fast. I was doing some research. They say that the mind can travel something like 67 miles per second, something like that, right? So that is the kind of speed that the mind can do. So you imagine that the mind thinks so fast that that you think that the mind can do many things, but in reality, the mind can only think one time. So if you remain mindful of one particular object of focus, you find that the mind has got no other. It cannot be distracted by any other things, right? And the mind can also process the past, the present, and future. Okay, if we have six sense door, we've got the eye that sees, the nose that smells, the mouth that tastes, the ear that hears, and the skin that touches feelings, and of course the mind. You find that the eye can see something, but the eye can never can never foresee something in the future. The eye can never recall the past. The eye can only look at the present, whereas the mind can process the past. Okay, can process the present and future. That is why the mind is so powerful. And to be able to understand the nature of mind is very important here. Right. Now, of course, the next one here is the five hindrances. Right. These are basically hindrances that affect our meditations. During the time when we are doing meditation, these are five mental hindrances we call it. Sexual desires, ill will, sloth and torpor, right? Restlessness and uncertainty. All right. So similarly, here is when the mind is going through these so-called five hindrances, it does affect our meditation process. And you find that because of this distraction, we are not able to be in the moment. All right. We are not able to be in the moment. So we all know sensual pleasure. It is something that will actually affect our concentration. In fact, all of these are ill will, sloth and torpor, drowsiness. All these will affect us. Now, what in this sutta taught us is basically aware that there is a desire. All right, aware that there's no desire. So many basically mean to say that when you are going through deep concentration, these five hindrances does not surface. All right, and then therefore there's no desire. And of course, you must also be mindful that while there's no desire, there could also be a situation where from no desire, there is an arising of unarisen desire. So you know that desire are appearing, whether it is anger, whether it's sleepiness, whether it is restlessness and doubt, or whether it's uncertainty, it will arise. And when it arises, what you can do here is that you mindfully note it and abandon the arising desire. Right? And then there's no future arising of abundant desire. So these are five hindrances that generally will hinder our meditations. So when you talk about sensual desire, we all know lust and what do you call it? Desire to the skin feeling and things like that. Ill wills are basically anger. And then when you're doing meditation, sometimes you feel drowsy. All right. And then you also have got doubt or anxiety. And of course, uncertainty of the Dhamma of the teachers. All right. So these are the 5 hindrances that was also taught in Satipatthana Sutta on the mental qualities. So long as we are mindful of this, we should practice hard and try to overcome these 5 hindrances. And only when you're mindful that you're able to overcome these 5 hindrances. How do we then overcome all these 5 hindrances? Number one here on sensual desire, learn and focus on meditation on impure object. This is the one we talk about asubha, where you talk about meditation on the corpse, that all things will be subject to decay. All right, that's number one. Number two here is guide the 5 sense door. Right, guide the 5 sense door. Be mindful of the 5 sense door. Number three here is eat moderately. Very often they're not, when you overeat, you find it difficult to meditate. And when there are a lot of challenges, one of the things that may arise here is a sensual desire. And of course, in your day-to-day life, noble friendship and suitable conversation is important, especially if you are not doing your meditation. Very important to have good friendship and suitable conversation. And through this noble friendship and suitable conversation, you find that your mind will be crowded with better qualities, better qualities thoughts, and that will actually help to mitigate or to minimize the mental hindrances on sensual desires. The second one here is an evil. I think we also practice loving kindness meditation very often. Every Wednesday, if time permit, I will join Dato Sri's Victor's meditation session, and I find that it's very important and very, very powerful. Meditation, loving kindness meditation is very important. If you practice it well, you find that it does give a positive effect, especially for me as I like hiking, and then if I were to see any wild animals or insects, I will try to shoot them with loving kindness. And you find that actually the effects very often they're not positive. Now, to overcome ill will or anger, we must also understand that and know that one is owner and heir of one's actions. This is basically referring to law of karma. So when ill will arise or anger arises, be mindful that whatever you think and act, it will come back to you. So it is law of karma. And of course, do a frequent reflection that you should try to manage the anger or ill will. Sloth and drowsiness. Overeating is often the main cause. So when you overeat, you find that especially after you have your lunch, it's quite a challenge to practice meditation, because you will then your blood will all flow into the stomach, and you have nothing left, not much blood left in the brain, and for you to be able to put great focus on the mind, you tend to be very sloppy and drowsy. Yeah. The other way here is that when you feel sloppy and drowsy, you should change your body posture. So if you're doing sitting meditation, you should either change it to walking meditation or open mindfulness. It will help you to eliminate drowsiness and sloppiness. And of course, if you have got an open air, move into the jungle, move in open space, it gives you fresh air. All right. And thinking of perception of light, it's basically when you are slop and drowsy, you feel like sleeping. You feel like the light is turning off, and it's time for you to sleep. So if you think of perception of light, bright basically means to say that it will give you that what do you call it? That awakened perceptions. And of course, again here, noble friendship and suitable conversation will help you to alleviate slop and drowsiness. The fourth one here is to overcome restlessness and anxiety. Knowledge of Dhamma is very important here, right? And of course, ask questions whenever you need, and know the Vinaya or Dhamma. Vinaya basically means to say that if you're a monk, then you know the Vinaya. If you are a layman like us, knowing the Dhamma is also very important, and associate with the wise, as well as noble friendship and having a suitable conversation. Okay. Last but not least, to overcome the uncertainty, you should also follow the 5 points under restlessness and anxiety. And of course, having Saddha in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is very important. This is with full understanding of the teachings of the Buddha. All right. Then with that, you're able to clear doubts. These are the 5 ways in which you can overcome the 5 hindrances. All right. Okay, that's the end of my talk today. Thank you very much. Over to you, Brother Terence.
Thank you very much, Brother Seng Huat, for today's sharing. Now let's take it, those merits that will accrue to all beings, whether they are seen or unseen. Akasatha cha bhummata devanaga mahidika punyang tamanumoditva chiram rakkantu loka sasanang ettavata cha amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva sabbe bhuta sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. And aspirations. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yavani bana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you everyone for watching. For other videos, please visit the links below. Bye bye for now. See you all again next week.